Welcome to A4U TV. My name is Irayal Harris and I'm here with a new message. My topic for today is a cry of Bartimaeus. Well, I would like to ask you that have you ever cried? Well, you might say that yes, everyone cries, but no, I'm not talking about that cry. I'm talking about the cry of longing something, a cry of a need something. Yes, children often do cry the cry of longing when they need something. Well, I know a person from Bible who really cried, and he really cried the cry of longing something from Jesus. And this person is found in Gospel of Mark chapter 10 and verse 46 to 52. And verse 46 says, "Now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, 'Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me.'" This was a blind man whose name was Bartimaeus. And Bartimaeus lived in the city Jericho. And as Jesus was passing through Jericho, Bartimaeus saw that it is Jesus of Nazareth. And Bartimaeus cried out and he said, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." This was the first time Bartimaeus cried. This was the heart cry of Bartimaeus. It was the cry of longing, and he was a blind man and he lived in city Jericho. Now, as Jesus was passing through Jericho, Bartimaeus saw that it is Jesus of Nazareth, and he cried out and said, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." This was the first time Bartimaeus cried. And this cry was the heart cry of Bartimaeus. And this cry was a cry of longing something from Jesus. But the first time Bartimaeus cried, he was not heard. This cry was, and the first time Bartimaeus cried, it was a normal cry. It was a normal shout just to gain attention. But Bartimaeus was not heard. This was the first time Bartimaeus cried. This was a normal shout just to gain attention. But he was not heard. And then in verse 48 it's written, "Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, 'Son of David, have mercy on me.'" This was the second time Bartimaeus cried. And this cry was a very loud cry. This cry was a very different cry. And Luke uses a different Greek word for this cry, that is lexicon. It means a very loud cry. It was a cry that was very loud. It was the cry of desperation. It was the cry of longing something. It was the cry to be changed. It was the cry for victory. Have we ever cried such a cry? Have we ever cried such a cry? Have we cried a cry that is too deep? Have we cried such a cry to have a relation with Jesus? Have we ever cried such a cry? Have we ever cried a cry that is too deep? Have we ever cried to have a relation with Jesus? To move on with Jesus? This cry was for mercy. This cry was the cry of faith. It was the same cry that Israelites had. This was the same cry. This was the same cry that Israelites had when they broke the walls of Jericho. It was the cry of faith. And when he cried the cry of desperation, Jesus called him. Yes, he was called. When he cried, he was called. And verse 49 says, so Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. Then they called the blind man, saying to him, be of good cheer, rise, he is calling you. First, the crowd stopped him from coming to Jesus. They said, be quiet, don't shout. But he cried aloud. He shouted aloud, and he was heard. And Jesus commanded him to be called, and he was called. First time, Bartimaeus was not heard because he was far away from Jesus. He was not heard because he was on a very far distance away from Jesus. Sometimes we are also not heard because we are far away from Jesus, that Jesus cannot hear us. But Bartimaeus cried, and he was heard. If we cry the cry of longing him truly, he will hear us. And as he was called, as Jesus heard him, the verse 50 says that throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. As soon as he was called, his life changed in a moment. He came to Jesus. He ran towards Jesus. He threw off his cloak that he was wearing. A cloak is like veil behind which we hide. But Bartimaeus threw off his cloak. He threw off all the things he was carrying. He threw off all the burdens that he was carrying from years. And he just threw it off, and he came towards Jesus. One of the other incidents in Bible is of Elijah throwing off his cloak before he went to heaven. Elijah threw off his cloak before going to heaven, because before going to that place, he had to leave everything behind. If we want to go to heaven, if we really desire to be in that place, we have to leave our cloak. We have to leave the things behind. We have to leave our past behind. We have to throw off all the things of the sin and shame that we are carrying. Bartimaeus threw, and after Bartimaeus threw his cloak off, after he left all his previous life, after he left all the things that didn't allow him to come towards Jesus, he stood up and he jumped and he ran towards Jesus. He was a blind man, not even knowing the direction where he is going. He ran towards Jesus because Bartimaeus truly trusted Jesus. Bartimaeus trusted him truly that he is the way. He walked on the way that led to Jesus. Bartimaeus was ready to run from his present situation. Bartimaeus was ready to leave all behind and just to run. He was ready to leave his present situation. Are we ready to leave our present situation? Are we ready to leave everything behind and go to Jesus? And just as he reached Jesus, verse 51 says, so Jesus answered and said to him, what do you want me to do for you? The blind man said to him, Rabboni, that I may receive my sight. Verse 52, then Jesus said to him, go your way, your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road. He came to Jesus and Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? What? Didn't Jesus knew what a blind man may seek for? But Jesus asked him because Jesus knew that his cry was not just for sight. One of the other NIV translation says that he said that, Rabbi, I want to see you. This cry was the cry to see Jesus. This cry was the cry to have a change in his life. This cry was a cry of desperation. It was the heart cry of Bartimaeus. This cry was a very deep cry, and God heard that cry. This cry was the cry of mercy. If we really want to walk in life today, we have to accept the call of the life giver. If we really want to be heard, we have to cry the cry that is too deep, a cry that is with a true heart, a cry of mercy. He left everything behind and ran to Jesus. If we want to come to Jesus, we have to leave everything behind and to live with Him for eternity. He has already called us, but it depends upon us that do we accept His call? Do we leave everything behind? Do we leave our past and move towards Jesus and to live with Him for eternity? May God bless you. Thank you for watching A4U TV and stay blessed from upcoming videos. If you haven't liked the page of A4U TV, please like this page and subscribe this channel for more upcoming videos.